You just bought mobile proxy and the provider handed you one cryptic line. Now you are staring at an ISP proxy that costs half as much and runs twice as fast. And you are wondering if you wasted your money. Here's the verdict up front. If your job is surviving account verification on a platform that bans hard, buy mobile. If your job is steady, speed-sensitive work at volume, buy ISP. Most people buy the wrong one because they shop on price alone. I run a hardware proxy farm in Singapore. Real phones, real SIM cards from Singtel, M1 and StarHub. I watch what passes verification and what gets flagged every single day, across hundreds of ports, so this is not theory for me. It is the thing I get paid to keep working. When a platform tightens its checks, I see it in my logs before I read about it anywhere else. Let me define both properly, because the names hide what they actually are. The whole comparison turns on where the IP physically lives and who it looks like it belongs to. An ISP proxy is an IP hosted in a data center but registered to a residential ISP. So when a platform runs a whois lookup, the ownership reads residential, like a home connection, but the box itself is sitting in a server room on a fat wired line. It is a hybrid. It looks like a house and runs like a server. Here is how that trick is actually built. A proxy company strikes a deal with an internet provider to lease a block of the provider's residential IP space. They then announce and route that block out of their own data center hardware. The address keeps its residential registration in the public records, but the traffic comes off a rack, not off anyone's home router. That hybrid nature is exactly why people like ISP proxies. You get the speed and stability of a data center with an ISN that does not scream data center the way a raw hosting IP does. It is fast, it is static, and it is cheaper than mobile. For a lot of work, that is a genuinely good deal, and I will not pretend otherwise just because I sell the other thing. A mobile proxy is a different animal entirely. It is a real carrier IP, the same address a normal phone gets when it connects to the cellular network. It sits behind NAT, which means carrier-grade network address translation. In plain terms, the carrier puts thousands of real subscribers behind each public IP to conserve addresses. That detail is the entire reason mobile proxies are special. When you go out on a mobile IP, you are sharing that address with a crowd of genuine paying customers of Singtel or M1 or StarHub. You are one face in a busy crowd, not one person standing alone in an empty room. The crowd is your cover, and it is a crowd the platform cannot afford to upset. Now the part that actually matters. Trust under verification. This is where the two split hard, and it is not close. Phobin thesis momin din iterme momin sitin symptom and namis. A platform cannot ban a shared carrier IP without also banning a pile of real users sitting behind that same SIGNAT address. Blocking you means blocking them, and those real users are paying customers the platform wants to keep. So platforms are reluctant to drop the hammer on carrier ranges, and that reluctance is the protection you are paying for. Think about what verification is really doing under the hood. When you sign up or log in, the platform scores the connection. It looks at the S and the IP belongs to, the history attached to that exact address, and how many real people plausibly sit behind it. A carrier SN full of real phones scores high on all three at once. ISP proxies earn good trust too, and I want to be fair here. The residential whois makes them look legitimate, and they clear plenty of checks that a plain data center IP would fail instantly. For a lot of verification, an ISP proxy is perfectly fine, and you do not need to spend more. But ISP has weaknesses that mobile does not, and this is where accounts quietly die. First, it is static, so the same IP carries the same history forever. A platform can fingerprint that address and watch it over time, slowly tying everything you do back to one fixed point. Second, those residential ranges are known and finite. They get resold across many customers, and they land on block lists when other buyers abuse them before you ever log in. You can inherit a dirty address you never touched, and there is no way to scrub a history someone else wrote. Here is the detection part most people miss. A determined platform can often tell an ISP proxy from a real home line by behavior, not just by whois. Real homes go quiet at night and busy in the evening. A data center hosted IP serving proxy traffic runs flat around the clock. Hundreds of unrelated sessions, no human rhythm. That pattern is a tell, and the big platforms have learned to read it. There is a second tell on top of that one. An ISP proxy block tends to host far more concurrent accounts than a real household ever would. A normal home has a handful of people on it. When a platform sees 40 unrelated logins from one supposedly residential address in an hour, the residential whois stops being convincing, because no family of 40 lives behind one router. Mobile is much harder to read that way, because the carrier IP genuinely is a real phone network. Your sessions mix with real human browsing on the same address, the rhythm looks alive, and the SN is one a normal person would actually use from a phone. You are not imitating the signal, you are riding the real one. So on pure trust, the order is clear. Mobile sits above ISP, and ISP sits well above raw data center. If a platform is actively hunting and verification is the wall you keep hitting, mobile is the answer, and the price difference stops mattering. Now let me argue the other direction, because this is a comparison, and I am not here to sell you the expensive thing by default. Speed and cost go to ISP cleanly, and you should respect that. An ISP proxy lives on a wired data center connection, so it is fast and steady, and it is cheaper per unit than mobile. Low latency, high throughput, no wobble. If you are pushing a lot of requests and the target is not fighting you, that speed turns directly into more work done per hour. A mobile proxy rides a real cellular link shared with real users, so it is a little slower and the latency wobbles, and it costs more because there is real hardware and a real SIM behind every single port. You are paying for the phone, not just the bandwidth. That phone is a real device on a real plan that someone has to keep online, and that cost is exactly what makes the trust real. There is also the static versus rotating split, and the two products sit on opposite ends of it. An ISP proxy is static by nature. One IP held steady, the same address every session. That is great when you want a stable identity that does not move and does not surprise you. A mobile proxy can do both, and that flexibility is the point. You can hold a sticky session on one carrier IP for a long-running login, or you can rotate to a fresh carrier IP on demand to reset a soft block, all without leaving the carrier ASIN. Same trust, new face, your call. An ISP proxy cannot hand you a clean new identity on demand because its one static IP is the only one it has. That rotation matters more than it sounds. When a platform throws a soft block, a temporary cooldown rather than a full ban, a fresh carrier IP from the same pool often clears it instantly because the new address has no baggage but still carries the same trusted carrier ASIN. With a static ISP proxy, you have nothing to rotate to, so a soft block on that one IP just stalls you until it lifts on its own. Let me make the best for concrete because that is what you came here to decide. Say you are scraping a price feed or a public listing site at high volume, the kind of target that does not run aggressive checks. By ISP, you want throughput and a steady address, and mobile would be slower and pricier for no extra survival. Say you are checking search rankings across thousands of queries, or monitoring competitors, or pulling public data all day. Again, ISP. The work is speed sensitive and steady, the target is not hunting you, and a fixed fast IP is the right tool. Paying mobile rates there is just burning money. Now flip it. Say you are creating new accounts on a platform that bans on-site, or warming up accounts you plan to run for months, or logging into anything that fingerprints the carrier behind the connection. Buy mobile. One ban there erases real money and real time, and the carrier IP is the thing that keeps you alive. Say you are running several real identities in parallel, and you cannot afford to have them all tied together. Mobile again, with one clean line per identity. An ISP proxy that 10 accounts share is a single static address linking all 10 the moment one of them gets flagged. One technical note that applies to both and quietly ruins setups regardless of tier. If you use SOCKS 5, use SOCKS 5H so DNS resolves through the proxy and not your local machine. A DNS leak sends your real resolver out to the target and undoes the entire point of the proxy, and it happens on ISP and mobile alike. Here is the honest line that ties it together. The best proxy is the cheapest one that does not get you blocked. Start one tier down, test against your actual target, and only climb to mobile when verification is the thing that keeps failing. Do not pay mobile prices for a job an ISP proxy handles fine. And do not trust an ISP proxy with an account that a single ban would destroy. The cheaper proxy stops being cheap the moment it costs you an account you cannot get back. That is the math that actually matters, and it is the one people skip when they sort a list by price and buy the bottom row. If your work is the high-trust, ban-prone kind, and you need real Singapore mobile IPSI, that is exactly what we run. Real SG carrier IPSI on real SIMs, sticky sessions when you want one steady identity, rotation when you want a fresh face, and DNS that routes through the tunnel so you are not leaking your real resolver and undoing the whole point. You can start the free trial at singaporemobileproxy.com/client/trial and use code YT30 for 30% off your first month. If this helped you pick the right tier instead of the expensive one, subscribe. We publish 2 new videos every weekday, plain talk from people who actually run the hardware. See you in the next one.